Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Jennings, and I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry. And excited to be back again here at FantasyLabs doing a lineup review for NBA. Going to be doing these on Tuesday and Wednesday, most weeks going forward. I think it's going to be fun to review lineups and just look through different things in basketball. I've done these a lot in the past for basketball and football and haven't done them as much for NBA, but I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. And certainly feel good that I was able to take down a DraftKings qualifier last night and have a good overall night for this NBA preview. So we'll take a look at some of the choices I made and some lineups of other players and dive into it. So was fortunate enough to take home the $900 Q last night. Haven't been playing a ton of these, but I'm going to be off to Hawaii coming up here in a little over a week. So I will not be able to play DFS there, and I wanted to fire a couple bullets into the Qs to give myself a shot to have a fun trip to Miami. So fortunately took it down. It was a nail biter. I was basically fading Wiggins at the end from King Fi, and I had Towns and Rubio, and right before KARL-ANTHONY, Towns, and Rubio were taken out of the game, Towns got a rebound to put me over the top. So feel very fortunate to be on the right side of variance. Let's take a look at my team here. I went with Ricky Rubio, who I thought was a really good play going against Sacramento. Only 6,600. I thought he had a lot of upside, and if the game stayed close, I thought he'd have a really nice game. Just looking here at his splits, he's done pretty well against Sacramento as well. I went Malcolm Brogdon at the shooting guard position for the savings because Chris Middleton was out. A lot of people went Corey Joseph, who I did play on FanDuel, but I decided to go Brogdon for the savings to fit in some other guys, and it really worked out. Joseph didn't have as good of a game, and Brogdon really thrived down the end of the game. And, yeah, it's a play that I think you can make when he's cheap enough when Middleton's out. Basically, he's not performing nearly as well when Middleton plays, but has nice splits with him out. So I think Brogdon's an interesting play, and it's a situational play as well. I punted with Tony Snell at the small forward position, just a pure punt. 3,100, just hoping he can make some threes. He didn't have a great night, but fortunately there were so many duds on Monday that it worked out with Tony Snell. So he didn't have a great game. He was lower owned, but he was a pure punt. As was Lance Thomas, who was starting at 3K. I thought he was a pretty easy play. He was 22%. Not a ton of upside, but I wanted to fit in some other guys, and Snell and Thomas really opened up the rest of the roster. With Miles Turner at the center position, and he was the uber chalk at center at 45.2% in this field. He had an okay game, not a great game, basically trying to capitalize on an uptick in pace going against Houston. And he didn't have an awesome game, but didn't have a bad game. The one nice thing when taking guys who are shot blockers versus Houston and rebounders, obviously the Rockets are going to shoot a ton of threes, but their other goal is to get a lot of shots in the paint. So I do think it's nice to take a flyer. Not even a flyer, but I do think it's nice to take guys who block shots like Miles Turner against a team like Houston because you get the uptick in pace, and there's more opportunity for that as well as scoring given the way that Houston plays. DeMar DeRozan at 35.5%. I've just been locking him in with the news of Lowry. I think he'll end up being close to a 10K player. I mean, he's just been ridiculously good since Lowry's been down. Really feel bad for the Raptors. It's unfortunate that Lowry's going to have this surgery, but hopefully he'll get back and this Raptor team will be healthy for the playoffs and at least have some time to gel because I think they have a really good shot to be a good team this year. So the Baca trade is definitely big, and for DFS purposes going forward until DeRozan gets into that upper 9s to 10K range, he's just too good of a play. His usage rate is just off the charts. And the one thing I love to see that really I think is a huge improvement of his game is he's getting to the free throw line. He's getting to the free throw line really efficiently. So that has a ton of real life value as well as fantasy value. And DeRozan, he looks like a must play in a lot of formats until his price goes up even further. Paul Millsap against the Celtics. I really like Millsap versus Celtics. He had a good couple games against them already. They don't do well in rebounding. I thought Millsap made a ton of sense. Started off extremely hot, had over 20 fantasy points in the first quarter, and then didn't do great down the stretch, but he did, basically meet value at his price tag, did above value, and he really paid big dividends. So I was happy with Millsap's performance. I think he made a ton of sense, and a lot of people were on him in cash games. 21% owned in this queue, but I think he was a really sharp play last night. Towns was certainly fortunate. This was just a strict game theory play. I differentiated my Q team versus my cash game team that I'll show you here in a second. Towns was strictly a play based on ownership, in my opinion. I thought he had a high ceiling going against this team. You can't really look at the splits going against Sacramento because of Boogie Cousins being gone, and the team is a lot different. But a lot of people weren't going to take him because he has severe home road splits. So if you look here again, he's averaging much better, or he's averaging more fantasy production at home versus away. So most people in general are taking him at home, which I do believe in those home road splits for certain players to a degree. But I was willing to take a flyer on him, and a lot of people were playing Greek Freak last night, Isaiah Thomas. There's a ton of guys that went pretty heavily owned that were expensive, so I thought Towns made a ton of sense as a high-end play. And the nice thing, too, is Ricky Rubio and KARL-ANTHONY Towns are correlated. You can check that on the correlations tab on FantasyLabs, and taking those two together always makes sense because they complement each other so well. Rubio can get a ton of assists to Towns, and they play well together. So that was the team. I feel really good about it. King Phi, who's been one of the best players overall, definitely is someone to pay attention to with his lineups. He had a really strong lineup as well. Malcolm Brogdon, Henderson, Wiggins, Millsap, Whiteside, Rose, Nowitzki, and Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard had a great game. I did believe he did get injured, so I need to go back and check that. But ran well there. He didn't play a lot at the end of the game, I believe. Wiggins had a huge game relatively. His price has come up, but he's where he should be now with Levine out. So really nice team. Derrick Rose was a cash game play for me on FanDuel. Didn't have him on DraftKings, but certainly a really nice pick, and he did really well. So I think it's an interesting tournament here. These Qs are really challenging. I warn everyone before getting into these that they're really high variance, and they might not be the highest EV tournaments unless you're really a game theory specialist. I really enjoy them. I play these for the entertainment aspect of daily fantasy, and I've been fortunate to qualify for a lot of these, and hopefully I can take down a basketball championship. That would be awesome, but definitely fun. I think there's other options that are better bankroll builders. So let's take a look here at my cash game team, which I did do a little bit different lineup, but a lot of the same guys. So this is my cash game team that took second in the 1K. Oftentimes I'll throw my cash game team in here. It pays 20% of the field, and I've had some experiments with game theory stuff, and if there's ever a game theory play that I really like, I will position it into this tournament, but I think there's a lot of value in just putting in the highest expected team. Definitely something I need to continue to tinker with and hopefully get better, but this was my cash game team, which you'll see is a little bit more heavily owned in this tournament. Really a lot of the same guys, except I went Paul George and Serge Ibaka in this specific lineup, which I thought made a lot of sense for cash games instead of Snell and Towns. But yeah, it was a really good team this last night. I was fortunate that some other guys busted, but Paul George was an interesting take. He's kind of a polarizing play around the industry. He's been really bad, but he had a really good matchup going against Houston, who he had done well against in the past. So I took Paul George at a discounted price, and I went for more balance with this team. It was a 2 versus 2, but certainly think I was fortunate, and hopefully the picks make some sense to you guys. Let's look at Udako's lineup, another elite player in fantasy NBA, definitely one of the best minds in the industry. Similar team went Tyreke Evans, who ended up being pretty chalky. That was someone I was considering for sure. 5,400. The issue for him is just minutes, but he's been really consistent with this new role at the Kings. Hopefully he'll get a higher minutes limit at some point, and we can really start taking advantage of the opportunity that Tyreke's going to have in Sacramento. DeMar DeRozan, shooting guard. Paul George at small forward. Lance Thomas, Miles Turner, Rubio, Millsap. So all the guys that I talked about. And then Willie Cauley-Stein at the bottom there. And he's had, really interesting start since Cousins been gone. So he's someone that I definitely will be paying attention to going forward. A great game, a dud, and then a good game. So definitely pay attention to Stein. I think we'll be taking him in positive matchups. He should benefit a lot from the Boogie Cousins trade. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Would love to hear any feedback that you guys might have. I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff we can learn from reviewing lineups. It's something I've done over the years, is reviewing lineups of respective players I think are really good. So Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. And as always, looking to see more Fantasy Lab subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.